In this video, we're going to create some interactivity. For example, as you can see here, this title here, if we remove this here, just to sales, it becomes sales. And here, if you're going to increase the values, you can see it starts to rotate. What is happening is basically values are being added at the very end of the array, and we're going to remove values at the very beginning. So if you do this to 100 here, it starts to change. And if we do this on 1, it instantly changes here as well. So let's start to explore how we can create this level of interactivity in Chart.js. In this video, we will explore how to connect input fields with Chart.js. So with Chart.js, you can create a lot of interactivity, but the interactivity needs to be connected. And in this video, we're going to explore exactly how we can do this. So first of all, before we start, make sure you go to chartjs3.com/getting started, and on this specific page we can get the code here. So we're going to grab this chunk of code, we're going to copy that, and if you would like to understand this part, please check out this video here. So I'm going to paste this in here, and once I paste that, I'm going to cut out the title, put it in there, alright, and save that. Once saved, you can see here now we have our chart ready. Alright. So what I want to do here now is I want to use some of the input fields to create some interconnectivity on different levels. For example, changing the title here, or changing the label here, changing the values here, depending on the user's input. So how do we do this? First of all, we have to create a few input fields, and those input fields need to be eventually connected with the JavaScript, so the JavaScript can recognize it, and then we can start to play around with that. Alright, so what I'm going to do here, just below the canvas tag, we're going to put in an input. So in here we say input type, and this can be a text type. And here we will eventually add a value, and we can say here value for now. This specific one will maybe trigger, let's say, the title here. So we can say here this will be, I'll just give it title for now. It will just be the value, and eventually here we will have a function. So once we save this now and refresh, we have now here something working. Alright. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get JavaScript. And with JavaScript, I'm going to make sure that JavaScript can read this specific item. To do this, I will put in here a, this could be maybe on change. And we just select here a function. We say change title, and in this change title we can get here the value, and this could be this value here. So basically we'll grab this input here, and eventually this will be useful in JavaScript. Alright, so once we did that, we're going to put in here function, and in this function we're going to say very straightforward here, change title. Make sure you spell it including the capitalized letter T. And then in here, we're going to put in the parameter. So what will be the parameter? Well, basically it is the value of this. However, this parameter, we can use the term this because that's a variable in itself. So we can say here title. If we will grab this title here, and we can just show here console.log, you will see that this title parameter will show the entire input tag. So if I save this now and refresh, open up developer tab, and then now if I put in here and then if I change this, well, this, as you can see, this is on change. I guess this should be on input, because the moment we change it, it will show everything. But when will we change it, or when is it being triggered? It's triggered the moment we move away from it. So that's the change. It's like a selection. So this should not be on change. It can be on key up or on input. That's probably the more better term, on input. Let's see if that one works. Alright, ignore that, save that, refresh. Now if I should type something, you can see here automatically every time I add up a character, it triggers it. And it's not key up, but it's basically when we insert something. Alright, so that works, but there's one issue here. It shows you not only the value, but it grabs everything. And you can see here our value right now is hard-coded as title. Let's remove that title item here for now, although it doesn't matter so much. There's no value in here. And then what we want to do here is we don't want only the title, or the value, but we want here dot value. Sorry, we don't want here the entire input tag. So if I save this now and refresh, now if I put in something, it's blank here, but if I put in a character, you can see now it gets here the letter D, which is correct. Here, this one, of course, still maintains everything, because that is the entire input. Alright, so if I type in here more, here you are, we get multiple items, but you will see our value is working nicely. So I'm going to remove this now, and this is a basic one here. And afterwards, we're going to go more and more deeper. So we can do here, and then we say here, for example, my chart. What we're going to do now is we want to reassign whatever here this title is. So we're going to reassign the title by whatever we have written in here. So what I will do here, I will just say here, this will be weekly. I guess this could be weekly of sales, which is not even a correct title. It should be weekly sales. That should be the official name. I have to change that eventually in my text, because that's grammar is not correct. However, let's put it like this. So I say weekly of sales. Alright, so that is incorrect. We should make this weekly sales. So what I'm going to do is, how do I assign this item here? So we need to trigger this, and then we need to reassign whatever is in here with the value or the parameter here. To do this, all we have to do here is we go in here on the constant of my chart, and this my chart will eventually go to the config. As you can see here, this is the config, which is dependent, and then we go to data, and from data we will select here the data sets, which is a array, and that means that it's index 0, and the reason why, because this is the first array or first element in the data set or in the array, which is always start with the 0 value. And then here we got label. So let's do that right now. So we say here dot config dot, and then we say here dot data, and then dot data sets 0, and then dot label, if I'm not mistaken, without the s. That is correct, without the s. Alright. So once we have that, then we say equals what exactly? Title dot value. Once we have this, we say here my chart dot update. This is the update API from my chart. Save that. So once I do this now, pay attention here what's going on. So I'm going to delete something. You can see here now we're changing it immediately. It recognizes that this is right now that, so it changes that, and then immediately it will put in as well, or it will matches with the new inserted value. So if we say here hello and a lot of text, there we are. Alright, so this works nicely. So this is one of them, of course, but this is probably not the most practical application that you would do for your user to change the title. But what you probably would like to do is maybe to adjust here something. For example, you want to have maybe a line here or something, or a specific bar that changes the color or changes the value. So let's do that one first. Alright, so what we're going to do now is the following. We're going to create a new input, and this input will be changing the data of the specific week here, or maybe even here we will say here the total. We'll make here another one. We just say put a here comma, and then we say here total. Let's do that one. And then in here, this should be the total amount of all of these here. So this will be, if I'm not mistaken, it's 69. You can count them up here. Alright. So once we have this one, we have this, and what we want to do, we want to match this total. This total should be eventually here. And right now, this is an 8th value, meaning there's an extra value here. And that will mean that Chart.js will grab the first color here. So it basically rotates itself consistently. So if I refresh here now, you can see here now it gets this color here. Alright. So what we want to do, we want to get this here, match it in here immediately. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy this. Right now, just for simplicity's sake, I will say here the value will be 69 here. So this will be change title as well, or no, this should be change total. That will be probably the right term. And then what we're going to do here is almost similar. The only thing what we do here now is we're going to put in here in the data sets here, we're going to change this total, change total. And then we say here total or sum doesn't matter, one or the other. So we say here as well, total value equals total value. So what we need to do here now, and before I continue on, you see here this error or the color warning. It is because we're missing this here. Alright, so once we did that, now it will work again. So what we need to do here now is the following. We're going to reassign this here. We have the data sets here. So we are basically already up here in the data sets. But then we don't want labels, we want the data. And here, this is as well an array. An array. And this value, what we want to pinpoint is the total value, which is 69, which will be number 7. And the reason why number 7, this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, so we're going to grab this one, or sorry, number 7, we're going to grab this, and then we say here data sets 0, and then we pinpoint data. Alright, so we go here. This should be data, and then here we put in the value. So we can say here number 7, and then we say total value. If I save this now, and I'm going to, let's see, this will be triggered on change. Alright, so let's see what happens. If I change this, alright, sorry, this is still a text. I realize we need to change the input into a number input. So make sure you have this. So this will be a number, and then we can press key up and down. As you can see here, we get these number pointers or buttons. So we go up, down, there we are. So as we press up, 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 there we are. It goes here and then it hits 90. You can see this is starting to match up nicely. Alright, so what can we do as well? So this is really important. When you look at Chart.js, many people have not a clear understanding what is Chart.js. They assume Chart.js is a JavaScript library or a JavaScript framework to draw charts, which is correct. But in reality, Chart.js is not only that, it is basically a template to create a chart in Canvas, or by using the Canvas API that is pre-coded. And that would mean that you don't have to understand how to write in the Canvas to draw, because basically we're using the Canvas here, and this is why people are struggling. When they don't understand how to use the Canvas, it is very hard to understand how to customize a chart in Chart.js. But once you understand that, it becomes easier. And I have some videos about that as well. However, that is really Chart.js. Chart.js is not only JavaScript itself, it is making readable or basically JavaScript code that will be readable for your Canvas API. Very important to understand that difference. This is why when you understand the Canvas API, you can create a lot of stuff in Chart.js. Alright, what we're going to do here now is, because this is of course as well, the foundation is JavaScript. This should be maybe soft-coded. So how do we soft-code it? So we can do the following here. We can just grab all this, grab this here, and then we say here the length. So the moment we do this, we get here the console log. We'll see what's the length here. Remember, the length will be always +1 compared to the array. And the reason why, the length starts at number 1, while the array starts at number 0. Remember that difference here. Alright, so to show you this, we're going to have here the console log. So if I save this, refresh here, you can see here, if I push this up or down, we have something here, but we also have to check our console log. You can see here we get number 8. So this is fine. All we have to do is to deduct it by 1. So that's what we're going to do here now. So we're going to grab this specific value, or we can make it here a constant. We say this constant will be a length array, for example. It should be maybe a better term. Or length total. Alright. So we're going to grab this. We're going to put it in here, and the length total will be equal to this specific item minus 1. Once you do that, you can save this and refresh, and let's see if we get now the right value. Oh, I can see that we are not getting the expected value here. And is that correct? We get here the data length total value. Oh, of course, we didn't do here the console log. So we can just hide this for now. We grab this one. Let's see, this should even respond, by the way. So let's check again. Let's put it on 10. There we are. So now you can see it starts to change as well. This is very interesting because with this we can start to play around more and more. So what we could do as well is here is to push a value, because I noticed that based on many people who are requesting for a lot of items, most people do not want to make a very fancy chart. What they do want is to create an interactive level on the chart so that the user can see or view. Alright, so what we're going to do here is the next item. So what we're going to do now is basically playing with our chart. Let's put in a push or a pull value where we can rotate data and change that as well, because that is probably a very interesting item for your chart as well, especially for your viewers. Alright, so what we want to do here now, let's say here, I'm going to grab here the array. So where's the array here? Basically, this is our array that we want to play with. What we're going to do now is basically this. I'm going to say this here. We have this here, and then what we could do here is we can say here, and then we can say here, push. So the moment we push, basically what happens is we're going to push a certain value in here. So we have here the total length. Alright, we have here the total value. So we can grab this total value and just push that in here. So what will happen is we will start to add value, but I don't want to only push a value, but I will just show you first the push. So if I refresh here, probably you will notice not much adjusting. However, something behind the scene is working. Alright, so if you want to understand what is going on here, we can do here console log. We can do the console log here. We say my chart, and at my chart here, we could grab the array. So we say my chart, and then we say config dot data, then dot data sets array 0, and then we say dot data. So now when we do this and we say enter, we get a huge amount of values in total of a length of 32. That is correct because we're pushing it up, 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 and it keeps on going up, up, and up. So what we want to do is, because you might say, well, wait a minute, I do not see it visually appearing. So why is that happening? Well, let me explain that. We have this here. We have here the labels, and the labels here will determine the length of what we have here. So we could push a value in here, and that might eventually show. So what we want to do is I want to rotate that. So let's start doing a short rotation here. So we have push, alright, and then we have the exact same item. We're going to remove at the very beginning, meaning that it will rotate and it starts to go here at the beginning, or move more and more to the left, because we're going to remove this and remove that for every adjustment of value. So what we're going to do here, we have here a push, so we have another one, which would be the shift. Shift would basically indicate to remove at the very beginning of the array a specific value. So if I do this, save this, and refresh, now I change that, as you can see here. Now it starts to adjust. Of course, the colors right now are not adjusting with it. You might wonder, why is that happening? Well, let me explain how Chart.js works. Chart.js has, and this is one of the newest features in Chartjs 3, and this is a quite nice one, because you are not dependent anymore on adding more and more colors. It will rotate through these colors consistently. But of course, with our rotation, now we have a slight confusion. And that confusion is that the colors are just adjusting here. This moves. The red one will be at the very beginning and at the end, always. Even if we change this to 10, alright, so you can see here, this will be number 10. And then we say here 100. Number 10 is now being orange. And then we go up, and it starts to move slowly, but the color is not matching along with them, because the colors are reassigned on here in this structure. Chartjs built this so you don't have to put in unlimited list of array values in your data, because as your data is starting to increase, you would have then a huge amount of extra background colors or border colors, and that is what they're trying to avoid here. So this is one of these items that you can play around with, and this is probably the ones that many will probably use to play and adjust to create an extra interactivity. There's a lot more that we can do. We can even change the colors based on certain values. So there's like an if statement. If it's negative, change the color to red. If it's positive, change the color to green. Of course, in this case, I will keep it for this. However, if you really are interested in all these other items, then I will be making some more and more topics where we create something with interactivity, with more with the inputs, because I know that many people like to have this part of understanding. And so I would say keep an eye on some other videos that will be coming very soon.